In this video, I'd like to briefly discuss how you can get your hands on a copy of Adobe Photoshop. Now, as we've discussed in previous videos, there are actually two versions of Photoshop that are for sale. There is the full version of Photoshop, which is often used by professional graphic designers, and there is Photoshop Elements, which is the lighter version of Photoshop, but contains so many functions that the vast majority of people, especially website owners and people who do what we do, we really only need the lighter version, Photoshop Elements. And that was one of the secrets that we discussed in the previous video. Photoshop Elements has 99% of all the image functions you'll ever need. In other words, the vast majority of people really only need to buy Photoshop Elements, not the actual full version of Photoshop, which is a lot more expensive. And the second secret is, for what we do, Photoshop really hasn't changed that much in 20 years. So this, of course, does not apply to everybody. If you're a professional designer who works in the graphic design industry, then you should probably get the latest version of Photoshop. But for the vast majority of my workday, you really just use the same basic functions again and again and again. So it doesn't matter too much which version of Photoshop Elements you get. There's a good chance you already have an old version of Photoshop Elements on your computer right now, because Photoshop Elements is often bundled with other software packages, or it often comes with a digital camera. When you buy digital cameras, you often get a copy of Photoshop Elements. So you might have an old one lying around somewhere, and that's perfectly fine. As I've mentioned previously, I've been using Photoshop since the 90s, and I've tried almost all of the different versions of Photoshop. The particular version that was used in the previous video was actually version number 7, made way back in 2008. Again, the same functions pretty much apply to all the versions of Photoshop. Sometimes the buttons are moved around though in different places, in different versions. But for what we do as web developers or as designers or as website owners or as people who need to take product photos, again, the same functions apply to almost all the versions of Photoshop. So as long as the version that you have is somewhere around this mark here, then that's probably okay. If it runs on your particular operating system, and if it's around version 7 through version 15, then it's perfectly fine to learn that version of Photoshop Elements. Okay, so how do you get a copy of Photoshop Elements? Well, the absolute easiest and fastest way is just to go to the Amazon page for the latest version, which is version 15 right now. And you'll notice that it's on sale right now for $59, and you can download for PC or you can download for Mac. So if you just wanted to get Photoshop Elements in the fastest possible way, and you wanted the latest version of Photoshop Elements, then this is what you should do. Just go to the Amazon page and press one of these two buttons for PC or for Mac, and that's it. But for another trick, if you really want to save some money, then you can save a lot if you go shopping at eBay. So we're on eBay right now, and all you have to do is type in Photoshop Elements into the search box. Here is one of the results that came up today. So you can see this person is selling an unopened version of Photoshop Elements 9, and it works on both Windows and Mac, and it's only $5. Again, these are the kind of deals you find on eBay. I've bought a lot of software in just this method. Now the trick is in making sure that you find a reputable buyer, and then reading about what his return process is, and then seeing his actual location. You see this person is in Maryland, because preferably you want to buy from somebody who's close to you, and you might want some sort of return process if the software doesn't start up on your computer. But like I said, I've bought a lot of software just using eBay, and you can literally save thousands of dollars this way. So here's another listing for $18, Photoshop Elements 11, works on Windows and Mac. And here's another eBay seller, Photoshop Elements 15, Mac and Windows, shipping from New Jersey for 99 cents. The auction ends in 5 days. So again, if you're just starting out and you want to save money, then I highly recommend that you just use this method. Get it from eBay or get it from Amazon, but do not sign up for the $1,000 version of Adobe Photoshop, especially when you're first starting out, because you really don't need it. Like I've mentioned, I've used pretty much all versions of Photoshop since the 90s, and I could easily run my entire business off just any cheap copy of Photoshop Elements. For what we do, this is an awesome app at an awesome value, and as a website owner, it's really the go-to tool to have, and it's been very beneficial in my own web business.